One of my most favorite scriptures in the Bible related to inclusion comes from the book of Revelations, and it is in chapter 7, verse 9, and it reads like this. After this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands. Why do I love that scripture so much? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but especially when we are creating stained glass spirit communities, it feels like it acknowledges that people from many tribes and speaking many languages who come from different places are all worshiping together. And so when we think about creating spiritual communities where oneness does not require sameness, that is one of the Bible scriptures that is a go-to scripture and reference for me. So when I'm working with communities and we are looking at all of the different factors, right? We'll look at their diversity welcome factor. We look at their inclusion worship factor. We look at their outrageous outreach, and we look at what they have in place to be intentionally inclusive. And for a few minutes, I want to focus on the inclusion worship factor. What is that about? Well, just think about the words. When we are in worship together, are we inclusive? And I will say that everything that I comment about as it relates to inclusion worship factor applies equally if we are talking about a class or an event that includes key elements of teaching or practicing spiritual principle. So what are the three elements of the inclusion worship factor? The three elements are the message, the music, and the membership. The message, the music, and the membership. So when you are thinking about your message, you want to be sure that you are using examples and quotations that represent a variety of identity groups. The big mistake that so many speakers or teachers or meeting leaders make is that they use verbal examples or written examples that reflect their own experience. But everybody in the room is not someone who has had those same experiences. So when you think about the vacations you've had, or the sports you enjoy, or the books you like to read, remember that the people you are serving or reaching read different books and may appreciate different sports or have grown up in different cultures and maybe even speak different languages. So you want to make sure in your message or in your course content that if you are using inspirational quotes, that you get quotations from people from different ethnic groups, different age groups, different cultural backgrounds. If you are telling a story to give an example of a key point that you are making, then you want to really evaluate, will that story relate to a large number of people? And the answer can be yes. And if you tell 3 stories in the course of that class or that talk or sermon, then you want to make sure every one of those stories connects with a different key group or core group. So let's look at the music. Music is similar. You want to vary your music. I attended a church for a while where the senior pastor of that church had certain songs that they really resonated with and certain artists they really loved. And I just observed how many people knew they were going to hear music from that artist, but they're like, it really doesn't do much for me. And there were some people who were actually, I really don't like that artist, but they were forced to hear that artist or that artist's music several times a month. So vary your musicians, vary the style of music, the cultural background of that music or the artist. And if you are able to bring in guest musicians, make sure that they represent visible and invisible diversity. Message, music, membership. So when talking about the diversity welcome factor, I talked about meet and greet, and that's the actual process of meeting and greeting people before, during, and after your event or service. But membership, when we look at the inclusion worship factor, where we are talking about what also happens during a worship service or a class, that how do you ensure that people feel like they either are a part of it, that they are in full membership during that event or that service, or would easily be welcomed into membership? Mostly it's, do I feel like I fit in here? How can we as leaders set up our service, our worship service, our event or class, so that someone who has not been with us for 5 years will not have any trouble? It won't be obvious to the people around them. Now, one of the ways that you can easily do that is if you have information that is continuously or regularly recited, like your purpose statement, or if you have songs that are community songs, congregational songs where everyone is singing, then you want to have the language, the wording easily available, whether that is in a print bulletin or whether that is visual on a screen, where a monitor, where the person who is just getting to know your community can follow along and feel like they are a member, not a stranger. That's the point of that. You're not highlighting them, but sometimes when we don't pay attention to this factor, you end up highlighting the visitor because they're looking around, they don't know what to say or do, they don't know the words, and you've asked everybody to stand up and recite together the church's vision statement, and they don't know it and they don't have it, and they might stand up, but they're going, and they're just moving their mouth. It doesn't make them feel like they are a part, and people around them notice and also notice that they are not a part. So in your inclusion worship factor, as leaders in inclusive communities, we want to pay attention to the content of the message, the theme of it, the quotations we use, and the stories we tell. We want to be sure to pay attention to the music. Are we varying the artists, the type of music, the feel of the music, and the membership? Are we doing things intentionally that help people feel like they are a member of the community, of the service, or of the class? My name is Tracy Brown. I'm the founder of Stained Glass Spirit and the author of the book, Stained Glass Spirit, Becoming a Spiritual Community Where Oneness Does Not Require Sameness.